A dolphin has a name, not a label we gave it, a name it invented for itself, a specific whistle it answers to, and it uses the names of other dolphins to talk about them when they aren't around. That's gossip. A crow can hold a grudge against your face for years and teach its own children to hate you, kids who have never once seen you. And on a cold pebble beach, a penguin will spend days searching for the single most perfect stone he can find, just to lay it at the feet of the one he's chosen. A proposal, with a ring made of rock. None of these animals are trying to be like us. They just are, naming each other, falling in love, voting, keeping score, throwing snowballs for no reason at all. The same habits we're sure make us human keep turning up in creatures that never read a single word about any of it. This one's long, so get comfortable. Quick question before we start. What time is it where you are right now, and what part of the world are you watching from? Leave it in the comments. Then settle in, because the list only gets stranger from here. Bottlenose dolphins. So let's start with that whistle, because it's stranger than it sounds. A bottlenose dolphin, Tursiops truncatus, is born without a name, the same way you were. And then, sometime in its first few months, it does something almost no other animal on Earth does. It makes one up. It invents a unique little signature whistle, its own sequence of sound, and from then on that's what it answers to. That's it. Not a call its mother gave it. A name it chose for itself, and keeps for life. Now, on its own, that would already be remarkable. Plenty of animals make sounds. Very few of them are walking around with a name they personally designed. But here's where it stops being cute and starts being a little unsettling. Dolphins use each other's names when two of them are together and a third one isn't around. Researchers have recorded them producing the absent dolphin's signature whistle, referring to a specific individual who isn't there to hear it. Think about what that actually requires. You have to remember someone. You have to remember their name. And you have to bring them up in conversation while they're gone. There's a word for talking about somebody behind their back, and we usually don't say it about marine mammals. But that's what's happening out there. They're gossiping, and it gets more formal than that. When two separate groups of dolphins meet in open water before anything else happens, they trade signature whistles. Each group announces who's present. It's an introduction. It's the exact thing we do when we walk into a room of strangers and start going around saying our names, except they figured it out first. And they did it underwater with no hands to shake. For a long time, scientists were careful about claiming any of this meant the dolphin understood the whistle was its own. Maybe it was just a reflex. So a team from the University of St. Andrews ran the obvious test. They recorded a dolphin's signature whistle, played it back, and watched what happened. The dolphin responded, turned toward the sound, answered it, reacting to the playback of its own name the way you'd react to someone calling yours across a parking lot. They knew it was about them, so that's naming. That's gossip. That's introductions. And we're one animal in. But the dolphins aren't done, because they also do the thing that arguably matters most. They pass knowledge down. In Shark Bay, in Australia, certain dolphins hunt along the sandy seafloor, poking into the sediment for fish hiding down there. The problem is the seafloor is rough, and a dolphin's snout, its rostrum, is sensitive. So these dolphins tear off a sea sponge and wear it over the snout like a glove. A tool. Protective equipment, basically, so they can root around without scraping their faces raw. Here's the part that makes it human. Not every dolphin in the bay does this. It runs in families. Mothers teach it to their daughters, who teach it to theirs down the maternal line, generation after generation. It's not instinct. It's a skill that has to be shown to you by someone older who already knows it. That's not biology. That's culture. That's a mother sitting her kid down and saying, "This is how we do it in our family." A name, a rumor, an introduction, and a family trade passed down through the women of the line. We're going to see fancier tricks later in this list. We are not going to see many that feel closer to home than that. Prairie dogs. If the dolphins impressed you by having names, the next animal is going to bother you a little, because it can apparently describe what you're wearing. There's a small, stubby rodent that lives in burrows across the grasslands of North America, the prairie dog, Cinnamus, and it does not look like the holder of any records. It looks like something that gets eaten. But buried in that little body is one of the most sophisticated communication systems anyone has ever documented in an animal. And by some measures, it leaves chimps and dolphins behind. You already know prairie dogs make alarm calls. Lots of animals do. A bird sees a hawk, the bird shrieks, everybody scatters. The shriek means roughly, bad thing, go. That's the whole message. One word. The prairie dog alarm is not one word. It's a sentence with adjectives in it. When a prairie dog spots a threat coming, the call it makes contains information about what kind of threat it is, whether it's a human, a coyote, or a hawk. That alone is more than most animals manage, but it keeps going. The call also encodes how big the thing is, how fast it's moving, the direction it's coming from. The other prairie dogs hear all of that and respond appropriately before they've even seen the danger themselves. They're not reacting to a scream. They're acting on a description, and then there's the detail that, the first time you hear it, you assume someone made it up. Dr. Kon Slobodchikov at Northern Arizona University spent something like 30 years recording these animals. And to test how specific the calls really were, he had people walk through a prairie dog colony wearing different colored shirts, the same person, same size, same walk, just a blue shirt one day, a yellow one the next, green after that. The alarm calls changed, consistently. The prairie dogs were folding the color of the human's clothing into the warning. Sit with that for a second. A rodent the size of your forearm looked up, saw a person, and the message it sent to its neighbors included a note about what color that person had decided to wear. That is a level of descriptive detail we generally assume is reserved for, talking. For language, Slobodchikov has argued for years that what these animals have is a language, and after 3 decades of recordings, it's a hard thing to wave away. They've got the social side down too. When 2 prairie dogs meet, they greet each other with what looks, honestly, like a kiss. They lean in and touch front teeth. It's a real greeting ritual, a way of confirming who belongs to the family and who doesn't. Members of the same group do it constantly. So you've got an animal that can describe a stranger's outfit to its friends, and then turn around and greet those friends with a little kiss hello. We didn't invent nearly as much as we think we did. Lyrebird, the next one, doesn't have a language of its own. It has everyone else's. The lyrebird, Menura novaehollandiae, a large ground bird from the forests of Australia, owns the most complex vocal organ of any bird on the planet. The part of a bird that produces sound is called the syrinx, and the lyrebird's is in a class by itself. You'd assume an instrument that good would be used to write an original song. It isn't. The lyrebird is a thief, to impress a mate. The male needs to put on a jaw-dropping vocal performance, and rather than compose something himself, he simply takes every sound he's ever heard and reproduces it perfectly. He'll run through the calls of 20 other bird species flawlessly, one after another, which would already be a neat party trick. But the lyrebird does not stop at birds. It imitates whatever is in the forest with it, and increasingly, what's in the forest with it is us. These birds have been recorded reproducing the sound of a chainsaw cutting through a tree. Car alarms. The mechanical click and wind of an old film camera. There are reports of them imitating a human baby crying, not approximately, with a precision that makes people stop the recording and play it again, convinced there must be a machine somewhere just off frame. The most famous example was captured by David Attenborough for the BBC in an Australian forest park, where a lyrebird worked its way through an entire construction site. The whine of power drills, the rhythm of machinery, the whole industrial soundtrack of people building something nearby, all of it pouring out of one bird standing on the forest floor. performing it for an audience of females it was trying to win over. And here's the quiet, strange thing about that. The lyrebird isn't commenting on us. It doesn't know what a chainsaw is, or a camera, or why a baby cries. It just heard a sound in its world, decided that sound was worth keeping, and added it to the act. The same instinct that makes a person hear a song once and not be able to stop humming it. We surround these birds with the noise of human life, and the birds, being excellent artists with no interest whatsoever in originality, simply learned the soundtrack and sang it back. A bird that does covers, basically. And the covers include a power drill. Chimpanzees. In 2014, a chimpanzee named Julie started wearing a piece of grass in her ear. Not for any reason. It didn't help her find food. It didn't keep insects away. It didn't do anything at all. She just stuck a blade of grass into her ear, let it hang there, and walked around like that. And then something happened that researchers had been waiting decades to catch on camera. The other chimps started doing it too. One by one, members of her group picked up the look. Grass in the ear, no purpose, purely because Julie was doing it, and Julie mattered. It spread through the group and outlasted her. It was, as far as anyone can document, the first recorded fashion trend in a non-human animal, a style. Worn for no reason, except that someone they respected wore it first. If you've ever bought something because the right person was seen in it. You and Julie's troop are running the same software. But fashion is the harmless end of what chimpanzees, pan-troglodytes, actually do with their social lives. Because underneath the grass in the ear stuff is one of the most ruthless political systems in the animal kingdom. Chimps don't just have a leader. They have campaigns. A male chimp who wants to be the alpha rarely gets there on muscle alone. He builds a coalition. Lower-ranking males who could never win on their own team up, pool their strength, and together they can push out a sitting alpha who's gotten too harsh or too greedy. And once the new male is on top, he doesn't just enjoy the position. He maintains it the way politicians do, with favors. He shares meat with the individuals who backed him. He spends time grooming his supporters, picking through their fur, the chimp equivalent of shaking hands and remembering your name. He's buying loyalty. He's securing the votes. And if he stops delivering, the same coalition that put him in power can take it away. There are males in the research record who held power not because they were the strongest in the group, but because they were the best at managing alliances, the ones who knew which two rivals to keep apart, which supporter needed attention, when to be generous. That's not strength. That's strategy. That's a guy working the room. And then there's the part of chimp politics that isn't funny at all. Chimpanzees run organized turf conflicts. Groups patrol the edges of their territory in silence, single file, checking the borders. And when a patrol from one community catches a lone male from a rival group, the outcome is not gentle. Jane Goodall documented the most famous case of this in Gombe, in Tanzania, a single community of chimps that, over time, split into two factions, a northern group and a southern group. What followed lasted about 4 years. The northern group systematically went after the males of the southern group, picking them off one at a time through coordinated ambushes, until the southern group's males were simply gone and their territory absorbed. It reshaped how scientists thought about chimps, because it looked less like animal aggression and more like a deliberate, drawn-out campaign to wipe a rival community off the map. A war, run by animals who share more than 98% of our DNA. So that's the grass in the ear and the patrols along the border, from the same species. Both of those are us too, bonobos. Now take everything you just heard about chimp politics and turn it completely upside down, because chimps are not our only closest living relatives. We have another one, just as closely related, and it solves problems in the exact opposite way. The bonobo, Pan paniscus, shares the same DNA distance from us that chimps do, and where a chimp community settles tension with threats, patrols, and force, a bonobo community settles it with affection. When there's stress in a bonobo group, a dispute over food, crowding, a newcomer, Anything that raises the temperature, the response isn't a fight. It's contact. The group breaks into a wave of physical closeness, touching and grooming and calming each other down, releasing the tension through the body before it can become violence. It sounds almost too convenient, like someone designed an animal to make a point, but it's real and it works. Bonobo society runs on de-escalation. They'd rather hug it out, in the most literal possible sense, than ever throw a punch. And here's the structural reason it stays that way. Bonobo society is run by the females. It's a matriarchy. The females form tight alliances with each other, and if any male starts throwing his weight around, the females band together and shut him down. No single male, however large, can bully a group that's organized against him. The result is a society that is dramatically more peaceful than the chimps. Not because bonobos are naturally gentle, but because the power structure makes aggression a losing strategy. The kindness goes further than anyone expected, too. At a sanctuary called Lola ya Bonobo in the Congo, researchers found that bonobos will willingly share their food with total strangers. Bonobos from outside their own group, individuals they've never met. And not as a last resort. In some cases, they'd share with the stranger before sharing with their own friends. That's almost unheard of in nature, where the rule is usually, mine first, my family second, everyone else can fend for themselves. Bonobos seem to actively like the unfamiliar. They reach out to it. Two animals equally close to us. One built politics and border patrols. The other built a society where the women keep the peace and you feed the stranger first. We didn't have to become either one. We somehow became a little of both. Capuchin monkeys. The next animal won't take less than its fair share, and it will throw food at you to prove it. Capuchin monkeys, sapajus, have what can only be described as a finely tuned sense of injustice. And the way scientists discovered it has become one of the most watched pieces of footage in all of animal behavior. The setup is simple. You take two capuchins, put them side by side where each can see the other, and you give them a job. Hand the researcher a small rock, get a reward. Easy, both monkeys do the task. Both get paid. Everybody's happy. Then you change one thing. You start paying one monkey in cucumber, which is fine. Capuchins will work for cucumber all day, and you start paying the other one for the exact same task in grape. And capuchins love grapes the way the rest of us love the good stuff. So now you have two monkeys doing identical work, watching each other, and one of them is getting paid in luxury while the other gets the budget option. The cucumber monkey notices immediately. In the famous experiment run by the primatologist Franz de Waal, the moment the underpaid monkey sees its neighbor get a grape for the same work, it does the task again, takes its cucumber, and hurls it straight back at the researcher. Then it starts rattling the cage, slapping the surface, visibly outraged. A piece of cucumber that it was perfectly happy with 30 seconds earlier is now an insult, because someone next to it is getting more for the same effort. That's not hunger. The monkey isn't even hungry. That's a sense of fairness and a willingness to refuse a deal it considers unjust, even when refusing means walking away with nothing. Plenty of people can't manage that, and once researchers saw capuchins could grasp fairness, they pushed further into something even closer to home: money. In experiments where capuchins were taught to use plastic tokens as currency, the monkeys learned the system disturbingly well. They figured out they could exchange a token for food. They started haggling over how much things cost. They tried to steal tokens from each other. And in at least one case, researchers recorded monkeys trading their tokens for personal favors from another monkey, which, if you follow the logic all the way down, is the first documented instance of an animal economy producing a paid transaction of the kind we don't usually associate with anyone but ourselves. Give a monkey money. In other words, and within a remarkably short time you get bargaining, theft, and a black market. We like to think the economy is a sign of how far we've come. The Capuchins suggest it might just be what happens when you hand any clever, social animal something worth trading, and let it notice that the guy next door got a grape. Honeybees. When a beehive gets too crowded, the bees do something we'd recognize from any town hall meeting. They hold a vote. Here's the situation. A colony of honeybees, Apis mellifera, has outgrown its home, so about half of them are going to break off with the old queen and start fresh somewhere new. The catch is that somewhere new has to be exactly right. The wrong cavity, too small or too exposed, and the whole swarm doesn't survive the winter. This is the single most important decision the colony will ever make, and no one is in charge of it. The queen doesn't pick. There's no manager. The swarm has to choose its own new home, together as a group of thousands. So they run an election. It works like this. Older worker bees fly out as scouts to go house hunting, scattering in every direction to inspect potential sites. When a scout finds a promising spot, she comes back and does the waggle dance, a specific looping, shaking movement that tells the others both the direction and the distance to the place she found. And here's the part that turns it into a real vote. The quality of the location determines the intensity of the dance. A truly excellent site, safe, roomy, the right shape, gets a long, vigorous, passionate dance. A mediocre one gets a half-hearted shuffle. The scout is, in the most literal sense, campaigning. She's giving a speech about how good her option is, and the better it actually is, the harder she sells it. Then the other bees do their due diligence. They don't just take her word for it. Undecided scouts fly out to inspect the advertised sites themselves, and if they come back convinced, they start dancing for that location too, adding their voice to hers. The more bees that visit a site and come away impressed, the more dancers it picks up, and the more dancers it picks up, the more new bees go check it out. Support snowballs. And when one location finally gathers enough dancing bees behind it, when it hits the threshold, that's the winner. The debate is over. The whole colony commits and moves. The biologist Thomas Seeley at Cornell spent years documenting these swarm decisions, and what he found is genuinely strange to think about. The process bees use to reach a group decision is, statistically, almost identical to the systems we use for democratic consensus. Independent scouts gather information, advocate for competing options, recruit support based on quality, and the group converges on the best available answer without anyone giving an order. It's a functioning democracy, run by an insect with a brain the size of a grass seed. And just so we're clear about how much is going on in that grass seed brain, bees also understand the concept of zero. The idea of nothing as a quantity, a number in its own right, is something human children take years to wrap their heads around, and something most of human history got along without. Bees have it. They can be trained to grasp that an empty card is less than a card with one dot on it. A colony that can run an election can also do a piece of abstract math that stumped our species for centuries. Leafcutter ants. The bees built democracy. The next animal built agriculture, and it did it roughly 50 million years before we got around to it. We tend to talk about farming as the thing that made us human. The moment our ancestors stopped chasing food and started growing it is supposed to be the start of civilization. The leafcutter ant, Ada, would like a word, because leafcutter ants are farmers, full-time, and they've been at it since long before there was anyone around to be impressed. Here's the thing, people get wrong about them. You see a column of these ants marching along carrying little pieces of leaf over their heads, and you assume they're hauling food back to eat. They're not. They can't even digest those leaves. The leaves are fertilizer. Deep inside the nest, the ants use that chopped up plant matter to grow a specific kind of fungus in carefully tended underground gardens, and the fungus is what they eat. They're not gathering a meal. They're feeding a crop. They cut, they haul, they compost, they cultivate, and they harvest. The entire cycle of farming performed by an insect. And like any farmer, their biggest enemy is disease. A bad mold can sweep through a fungus garden and wipe out the colony's whole food supply. So the ants run pest control. They constantly weed the garden, removing anything that doesn't belong. And built right into their own bodies, they carry colonies of helpful bacteria that produce what amounts to a natural antibiotic, a pesticide they apply to the crop to keep the harmful molds in check. An insect that invented antibiotics to protect its farm. Other ant species took the idea in a different direction and went into ranching instead. They keep herds of aphids like livestock, protecting them from predators and milking them for the sweet fluid they produce. But the detail that gets me is the garbage. A leafcutter colony produces toxic waste, dead fungus, spent leaf matter, the stuff that could spread infection if it built up. So the colony has a dedicated sanitation crew whose entire job is hauling that waste out to a refuse pile, a designated dump. And because those workers are constantly handling contaminated material, they are not allowed back into the clean parts of the nest. They're kept apart, quarantined to the waste areas, to keep them from carrying disease back into the gardens and the nursery. The colony invented a hazmat protocol. The trash workers live by the trash. Scientists at the Smithsonian Tropical Research Institute mapped out the physical structure of these nests and found that the architecture of the underground farms includes thermal ventilation systems, passages that move air and regulate temperature through the colony, built on the same principles human engineers use to ventilate modern buildings. Climate control in a dirt mound, designed by ants, tens of millions of years before an architect ever drew a floor plan. Bowerbirds. Our last farmer ran a civilization. This last one is an interior decorator, and he is extremely particular about it. The male bowerbird, family Patillinorinchidae, builds a structure that has no practical function whatsoever. It's not a nest. Eggs are never laid in it. Chicks are never raised in it. It's called a bower, and it exists for one reason only, to be beautiful enough to impress a female. He weaves a little avenue or hut out of sticks, and then he decorates the ground around it. And he does not just scatter objects randomly. He arranges them by color. Most species have a favorite shade. Many of them are obsessed with blue, and the male will collect anything that matches. Flowers, berries, beetle wings, shells, and increasingly bits of human junk. Bottle caps, scraps of plastic, anything in the right color. He sorts his collection and lays it out in a deliberate composition, building a clean gradient, the way you might arrange objects on a shelf so they look good together. It's curated. He's a designer with a palette and a point of view, and his entire romantic future depends on his taste. Then it goes a step further into something that genuinely shouldn't be possible for a bird. Some bowerbirds use optical illusion. The male arranges his objects so the smaller ones sit near the entrance where the female stands, and the larger ones are placed farther away, a trick of forced perspective. To the female looking down the avenue, it flattens the sense of distance and makes the display, and the male standing in it, appear larger and more impressive than they actually are. He's manipulating her perception of size using the same principle filmmakers use to make a normal-sized actor look like a giant. A bird figured out perspective, and we know exactly how much this matters to him, because researchers at Deakin University in Australia decided to find out what would happen if they ruined it. They went into the bowers and deliberately rearranged the objects, scrambling the careful color order the males had built. Then they backed off and watched. The males came home, found their displays wrecked, and immediately, obsessively, got to work putting everything back. Each object returned to its correct spot, the color order reassembled piece by piece, the whole composition restored to exactly how it was, all before the females came around to judge it. So somewhere in Australia right now there is a bird, alone, fussing over the precise placement of a blue bottle cap, getting it just right, stepping back to check the angle, and nudging it half an inch to the left. and he will do this every single day because as far as he's concerned, the alternative is dying single. African elephants. An elephant will stop for the bones of another elephant. Walking across the savannah, an elephant herd will pass the remains of all kinds of animals without a second glance until they come across the bones of one of their own. Then everything changes. The herd goes quiet. They slow down, gather around, and begin to touch the bones, running the tips of their trunks over them, turning them gently, lingering on the skull and the tusks. They'll stay like that for a long time, and then they move on, and they remember the spot. For years there was an argument about whether this meant anything, or whether elephants were just curious about objects on the ground. So researchers ran a clean test, published in the journal Biology Letters. They laid out 3 sets of bones in front of wild elephant herds, bones from a buffalo, bones from a rhino, and bones from another elephant, and watched which ones drew attention. It wasn't close. The elephants barely acknowledged the buffalo and the rhino, but the elephant bones, they investigated intently, handling them, staying with them. They weren't interested in bones. They were interested in their own. They could tell the difference, and only one of the 3 mattered to them. African elephants, Loxodonta africana, are one of the very few species on Earth that appear to grasp the end of a life as something significant. When one of them is gone, the others don't just wander off. They've been seen covering the body with leaves and branches, returning to it, standing near it in what looks unmistakably like a vigil that can last for days. It's about as close to a funeral as anything in the animal world gets, a deliberate, drawn-out acknowledgement that someone who was here is no longer here, and because they understand loss that deeply, they can also be wounded by it the way we are. Calves who watch their mothers taken by poaching don't simply move on. They carry it. Researchers working with orphaned elephants have documented behavior that lines up disturbingly well with post-traumatic stress in humans. Young elephants who wake in the night crying out, who startle easily, who grow up with a kind of hair-trigger aggression that traces directly back to what they lived through. The same event that would scar a child scars them, and it surfaces years later in the same ways. Their memory, which is the thing we praise them for, is also the thing that won't let them set it down. Crows. Elephants gather around the body to grieve. Crows gather around it to take notes. When a crow, Corvus corax, comes across one of its own that hasn't survived, it raises an alarm, a harsh, repeated call that pulls in every crow within earshot. They flock to the spot, and then often they go silent and simply observe the body, sometimes for an extended stretch. For a while, people assume this was the crow version of mourning, and maybe part of it is. But the leading explanation is colder and, in a way, smarter. The crows are conducting an investigation. They're studying the scene to work out what happened here, what brought down one of their own, so the rest of them can learn to avoid whatever it was. It's not just a funeral, it's a safety briefing. They're gathering intelligence on the threat, and crows are exceptional at remembering a threat. This is the species famous for holding a grudge, and they hold it against specific human faces for years. If a particular person wrongs a crow, that crow will recognize the individual on sight long afterward and treat them with open hostility. But it goes further than one bird's memory, into something genuinely unsettling. They teach the grudge to others, the wronged crow's neighbors, and even its own offspring who were never present for the original offense, will learn to recognize and harass that same person, reacting with anger to a face they have personally never had a single bad experience with. The hatred gets passed around the community like a story everyone agrees to believe. The biologist John Marslev at the University of Washington proved this on purpose. His team wore a particular mask, a caveman mask, while doing something crows didn't like. Then they walked around the area wearing that same mask in the months and years that followed. The crows came after it every time, scolding and dive-bombing anyone in that specific face, including, eventually, crows that had never witnessed the original incident at all. The grudge had outlived the event and spread to a new generation. A bird was holding a years-long vendetta against a Halloween mask, and recruiting its friends and children to hold it too. And lest you think the crow only looks backward, it also plans ahead. In lab tests, crows were offered a choice: take a small treat right now, or hold on to a particular tool that they knew would let them open a much better food box tomorrow. The crows passed up the immediate snack and kept the tool, choosing a bigger reward in the future over a smaller one in the present. That's planning. That's delaying gratification for a payoff that doesn't exist yet. A lot of us are still working on that one. Orcas, that kind of culture, knowledge handed down, grudges and skills passed from one generation to the next, shows up at sea too. And in one species it produced something that looks an awful lot like a passing fashion craze, and something else that looks like the deepest grief ever recorded in an animal. Orcas, Orcinus orca, are not born knowing how to be orcas. They go to school for it. Every pod, every orca family, has its own distinct vocal dialect, a set of calls unique to that group. Orcas off Iceland don't sound like orcas off Norway, and they don't fully understand each other's calls, the way two people from distant regions might struggle with each other's accents and slang. These dialects are learned, taught by the older animals to the younger ones, along with the family's specific hunting techniques, and those techniques vary from culture to culture. Some pods teach their young the risky maneuver of launching up onto a beach to grab prey at the water's edge. Others have never done it and never would. It's not instinct. It's heritage. Each pod is a small culture with its own language and its own traditions, kept alive by teaching. And like any culture, they get fads. In 1987, in the waters of the Puget Sound, a single orca started doing something pointless and strange. She began carrying a dead salmon around balanced on top of her head. Like a hat. There was no reason for it. And then it caught on. Within a couple of weeks, orcas across 3 different pods in the area were all doing it, swimming around with fish on their heads for no purpose anyone could identify, purely because it had spread. The trend lasted about 6 weeks, and then, as suddenly as it appeared, it went out of style, and they all stopped. We have a name for a behavior that spreads through a population for no practical reason, peaks and vanishes. We call it a fad. The orcas had one in 1987 involving fish hats. But the same animal that can have a 6-week fashion craze can also carry grief almost beyond comprehension. In 2018, an orca known as Tahlequah, researchers call her J35, lost her newborn calf within an hour of its birth, and she would not let it go. She kept the body with her, balancing it, carrying it, nudging it back up whenever it slipped. And she did this not for a day, not for a week, but for 17 days, traveling more than 1,000 miles through the open ocean while she did it. She fell behind her pod. She wore herself down to the edge of collapse, keeping that small body afloat. The world followed it, and only after 17 days did she finally let her calf go and rejoin her family. No one needs that explained. There's nothing to add to it. She carried her child for 17 days because she couldn't put it down. Sea otters. After all of that, here's something gentler. 2 sea otters, asleep, holding hands. It's not a metaphor, and it's not a lucky photograph. Sea otters, in Hydrolutris, sleep floating on their backs at the surface of the ocean. And the ocean does not hold still. Currents drift. Wind pushes, and an otter that nods off can wake up alone, separated from everyone it knows, so they solve it the obvious way. Before they sleep, they take each other's paws and hold on, drifting off in linked groups so the sea can't pull them apart in the night. A cluster of otters rafted together like this even has a name. It's called a raft. And the ones most likely to reach out and grab on are exactly who you'd guess. Mating pairs and mothers with their pups. When a mother really wants to be sure, she'll go a step further and wrap herself and her baby in strands of kelp, anchoring the family in place so no one floats off while they rest. They literally tie themselves together for the night, and the otter has one more habit that's going to sound familiar to anyone who has a favorite anything. Each otter keeps a tool, a particular rock it uses to crack open shellfish, smacking the shell against the stone balanced on its chest. But it doesn't just grab any rock when it's hungry. It has its rock, the good one. And to keep from losing it, the otter stores it in a loose pouch of skin under its forearm, a built-in pocket, and carries it around from place to place. It packs its favorite tool, and here's the part that tips it from clever into something softer. An otter can get genuinely attached to its rock. Biologists at the Monterey Bay Aquarium and elsewhere have noted that an otter that loses its stone will show real signs of distress, searching the seafloor, hunting for that specific rock. Not just any replacement, the one it had. The one that was its. Gentoo penguins, that kind of attachment to a single, perfect object is the whole foundation of the next animal's love life. And you already met him in the first minute of this video. The male Gentoo penguin, Pygoceles papua, proposes with a stone. When he's ready to choose a mate, he doesn't sing or dance. He goes shopping. He walks the pebble beaches and inspects stones, searching for the smoothest, finest one he can find. And this can take days of picky, deliberate looking. When he's finally found the one, he carries it over and sets it down at the feet of the female he's chosen. Then he waits. If she picks it up and adds it to her nest, the answer is yes. The deal is done. He gave her a ring. She said yes. They're a pair. If she doesn't, he's back to the beach. But here's why that gesture carries real weight. In a Gentoo colony, good stones are genuinely valuable. The nests are built of pebbles, and the right pebbles are scarce, which means stones are wealth. And wherever there's wealth, there's crime. Penguins steal stones from each other constantly. A bird will wait for a neighbor to turn its back, waddle over, snatch a prime pebble from the edge of their nest and waddle home with it, which kicks off exactly the kind of squawking, flipper-slapping feud you'd expect from two neighbors arguing over a property line. A penguin colony is, in this respect, indistinguishable from a cul-de-sac where someone keeps moving the fence. And because stones are currency, they get spent in ways that are a little scandalous. The researcher Fiona Hunter from the University of Cambridge spent years studying these colonies in Antarctica and documented something remarkable. Some paired-up females were quietly visiting single males and trading favors for their stones, walking away with valuable pebbles to improve the family nest, on the side, without the partner knowing. Hunter described it as functioning like a primitive economy, a market in stones with supply, demand, theft, and under-the-table deals. The penguins built a tiny pebble-based economy on a freezing beach, complete with the part of every economy nobody likes to talk about: rats. From an animal that schemes over real estate to one that, frankly, might be a better person than most people. Rats. We use rat as an insult, which is going to feel unfair by the end of this. Because rats, Rattus norvegicus, appear to feel something we'd call regret. Not just disappointment, but the specific cognitive sting of a bad decision. In experiments where a rat made a poor choice and missed out on a better reward it could have had, researchers watched it stop, look back toward the option it had passed up, and then change its behavior afterward. The physical signature of an animal thinking, "I should have gone the other way." It's not just reacting to a loss. It's recognizing that the loss was its own fault and adjusting. That's a more honest relationship with your mistakes than a lot of us manage. And then there's the empathy, which is where rats genuinely outclass expectations. In a study published in the journal Science, a rat was put in a space with two containers. One held chocolate, and rats love chocolate. The other held a second rat, trapped, distressed, unable to get out. The free rat had a choice: ignore its trapped companion and enjoy the chocolate by itself, or do the harder thing, It did the harder thing. It worked to open the trapped rat's container and free its companion. And then, rather than wolfing down the chocolate it could have hoarded, it shared the chocolate with the rat it had just rescued. Roughly evenly, it saved a friend and then split the treat with them. Try to hold that next to the word rat as an insult, and just so this one doesn't get too heavy, rats are ticklish and they laugh. When you tickle a rat, or when rats play in roughhouse with each other, they produce rapid high-frequency chirps, ultrasonic, far above what our ears can pick up, that researchers have identified as the rat equivalent of laughter. They make the sound when they're having fun, they seek out the human who tickles them, and they get happier the more it happens. There is, recorded in lab data somewhere, the sound of a rat giggling. Sit with the fact that one of the animals we try hardest to get rid of spends its spare time laughing. Japanese macaques. Our last one in this stretch has simply decided to take the day off. At the spa, in the mountains of Japan, where the winters are brutal, lives a monkey that found a loophole. Japanese macaques, Macaca fuscata, snow monkeys, discovered the volcanic hot springs that steam up out of the cold landscape. And they figured out that sitting in the hot water is a very good way to deal with a miserable winter. So they do. They climb in and soak, faces dusted with snow, lounging in the heat for hours, looking exactly like a person who has decided that today is a bath day and the world can wait. And it isn't only comfort. Researchers at Kyoto University measured stress hormones in these monkeys and confirmed that time spent soaking in the hot springs actually lowers their physiological stress. The spa works. They're not imagining it. They go to relax, and they come out calmer, which is more than you can say for most of our coping strategies. They've got food habits that look like cuisine too. One group learned to wash their sweet potatoes in the sea before eating. And the interesting part is they're not just rinsing off grit. They keep dipping the potato back in the salt water, and the leading explanation is that they figured out the salt makes it taste better. That's not cleaning, that's seasoning. A monkey discovered that food is better with a little salt and built it into the family recipe. And then, when they're young and the work of survival can wait, they make snowballs. Snow monkeys have been seen gathering up snow, packing it into compact little balls, and playing with them, carrying them around, rolling them, occasionally tossing them about. For no reason anyone can attach to food, safety, or status. It does nothing for them. It's just fun. There is a monkey on a frozen mountain who, having had a long soak in the hot spring and a properly salted snack, will pack a snowball with his hands and roll it down a hill, simply to watch it go. Same as you did. Same as your kids do. No further explanation has ever been required. Archerfish. There's a fish that can pick your face out of a crowd. I want to be clear about how strange that sentence is before we go any further. The archerfish, family Toxotidae, makes its living by spitting. It hovers just below the surface of the water, spots an insect sitting on a branch or a leaf above, and fires a precise jet of water from its mouth to knock the bug down into the water where it can eat it. To pull that off, aiming through the surface, correcting for the bend of light as it passes from air to water, hitting a small target above its head, the archerfish needs genuinely excellent vision. That part makes sense. A hunter that aims needs good eyes. What makes no sense is what that vision turned out to be capable of. Researchers, in a joint study between the University of Oxford and the University of Queensland, wondered if archerfish could be trained to recognize human faces, a task we tend to assume requires a big, sophisticated mammal brain. They trained the fish to spit at a photo of one specific human face in exchange for food. Then they ran the real test. They showed the fish that original face mixed in among dozens of new ones, up to 44 unfamiliar faces it had never seen, and watched whether it could still find its target. It could. The archerfish picked out the correct face with an accuracy as high as 86%. It spat at the right person over and over in a lineup of strangers, and here's the detail that makes it almost hard to believe. We humans have a dedicated piece of machinery for recognizing faces, a region of the neocortex, the wrinkled outer layer of our brain that handles our most complex processing. The archerfish doesn't have a neocortex at all. It pulled off one of the most sophisticated recognition tasks we know of without the brain hardware we assumed the task required. Somewhere out there is a fish that would recognize you on sight, and it's doing it with a brain that on paper shouldn't be able to. California sea lions. If a fish can do our face recognition without the right brain, the next animal does something even more surprisingly human. It keeps a beat. For a long time, scientists believed that the ability to feel a musical rhythm, to hear a beat and move your body in time with it, belonged only to humans and to a handful of birds that imitate voices like parrots. The logic was that beat-keeping was tied to vocal mimicry, so an animal that couldn't learn sounds shouldn't be able to find the rhythm. The California sea lion, Zalaphus californianus, blew that idea apart. Because sea lions don't mimic sounds at all, and one of them turned out to have better rhythm than most people on a dance floor. Her name is Ronan. Researchers at the University of California trained her, and she became a scientific celebrity for one simple, astonishing reason. She can bob her head perfectly in time to music. Not by memorizing one song and by understanding the beat itself. When the researchers sped the music up or slowed it down, Ronan adjusted her timing instantly to match the new tempo, which is the real proof. She wasn't running through a memorized routine. She was tracking the rhythm in real time and locking onto it, the way you tap your foot without thinking about it. She did it to Boogie Wonderland by Earth, Wind & Fire. She did it to Back in Black by AC/DC. She could do it to tracks she was hearing for the very first time. A sea lion keeping the beat to AC/DC on the first listen. The thing we were so sure made us special and the simple human joy of moving to music turns out to be sitting in the brain of an animal that barks for a living goal. Tom's orcas, Twofold Bay. So far this whole list has been about animals doing things that look like us, on their own, in their own world. These last two are different. These last two figured out how to work directly with us, and the first one signed something close to a contract. In Twofold Bay, off the coast of Australia, there's a piece of history that sounds invented but is documented in detail. For over 40 years, a pod of orcas, led by a large male the local whalers named Old Tom, ran a genuine working partnership with the human whalers of the area. It worked like a business arrangement, with both sides holding up their end. The great whales would pass through the waters offshore, and the orcas, being far faster and better in the open sea than any person, would find them, herd them, and drive them into the bay. Then the orcas would alert the humans, slapping their tails against the surface of the water near the whaling station, a signal that the catch was ready and it was time to launch the boats. The orcas did the finding and the driving. The humans did the rest, and the orcas got paid. Under terms so specific, the whalers gave them a name: the law of the tongue. Once a whale was brought in, the humans would secure the body and leave it in the water for about a day before hauling it off, because the orca's favorite part was the tongue and the lips, and the deal was that they got those first. The orcas took their agreed-upon share, and only afterward did the humans collect the rest of the whale for its oil. Both sides knew the arrangement. Both sides kept to it for decades. It's recorded in the historical record of the 1800s and early 1900s, and preserved today at the Eden Killer Whale Museum. And it ended the way. These things often end because a human broke the deal. The story goes that on one occasion, a whaler refused to honor the law of the tongue and denied the orcas their share of a catch they'd helped bring in. The partnership did not survive it. The pod stopped showing up. The decades-long working relationship was over, and the orcas never came back to help again. They held up their end for 40 years. The first time a person didn't, they walked away from the table for good. Honey guide, which brings us to the last one. And the last one doesn't wait around for us to notice it. It comes and gets us. There's a bird in Africa called the honey guide, indicator, and it has a problem. It loves beeswax. It's one of the few animals that can actually digest the stuff, but it has no way to get at it. It can't break open a wild beehive on its own, and it has every reason to be afraid of the swarm. So it worked out a solution that no other wild animal has ever managed with our species. It asks us for help, directly, and we say yes. When a honey guide finds a hidden hive, it goes looking for people, specifically among the Yao people of Mozambique, the honey hunters. It flies up to them and gives a distinctive chattering call, a call that means something. Then it flies a short way toward the hive and waits, flies a little farther and waits again, leading them tree by tree to a hive they would never have found on their own. The humans do the part the bird can't. They use smoke to calm the swarm, they open the hive, and they take the honey. And then they leave the wax behind, the combs the bird wanted all along, as payment. The bird gets the wax it can't reach. The people get the honey they couldn't have found. Each one provides exactly what the other lacks. And the most remarkable part is that this is a real conversation in both directions. The Yao have a specific sound they make to call the honey guide, a trilled brr-hum that's been passed down through generations of honey hunters. A study published in the journal Science tested whether the birds actually understand it, and they do. The honey guides were roughly twice as likely to come and to lead a person to a hive when they heard that particular brr-hum call than when they heard ordinary human words or other sounds. The bird knows that specific signal means, let's go to work. It's not a pet. It's not trained. It's a wild animal that learned our call, taught its meaning across generations alongside ours, and shows up to cooperate when it hears us ask. Right now, in Mozambique, a person walks into the bush, makes a sound their grandparents made, and a wild bird answers and leads the way. We spend a lot of time wondering whether anything out there is anything like us. There's a bird in Africa that already decided we were close enough to work with and called us over to prove it.